All right, I am back, and here we are. We're going to be looking at Atlantis, or what we think to be Atlantis. But more specifically, I wanted to show you guys some really interesting structures that I kind of question whether this is geological or perhaps artificial. So let's take a look at what we're talking about here. To start off this session, I wanted to first show you the general Richat structure. All these yellow dots that you see here are just kind of little structures I found here and there. Not all of it is like something that's worth showcasing, just so you know. But just to kind of give you a general perception of where the Richat structure is, as we back up, you see that's actually, I have it backwards here. We see that's right next, it's about 400 miles away from the coast of Africa. But the reason why I want to show you this kind of outward perspective is I want to give you guys a sense of what's happening here, because for this to be Atlantis, this would have had to have been at one time underwater and then somehow risen by perhaps geological forces. Now, what I found really interesting about this is when you do back this up, what you notice is evidence of massive water spills that likely was coming from a higher elevation, because I believe the Richat structure goes anywhere from 400 feet to 1600 feet. The point is that at some point, it looks like some point in history in the Sahara Desert, it looks like there was a massive swelling of water that seemed to have gone from a higher elevation back to the ocean. And then it's not just up here, but if you go down here, I went and marked it because you can kind of see these stretch marks going across the sand, you know, these water marks essentially, that seems to indicate that this area was indeed at one time underwater. Here's some more evidence of potential water erosion that was happening. So this is, to me, is pretty evident that this is pre-evident that this area was indeed underwater at some point, not to mention the whale fossils that we talked about. So just to start off the session, I wanted to show you the first strange structure. Now, I'm not saying that this structure is ancient. I'm not saying it's from Atlantis. I just wanted to showcase it because it's one of the more interesting things we've discovered in this crater area. So if I were to go... Okay, so we're going to go to this rectangular structure. This has already been showcased by other channels. And look, obviously this looks artificial. It's rather interesting. As we go back in time, the structure doesn't really change much. There's no tire tracks there. So all I can tell you is I don't know what this is. The area associated with the Richat structure has been there way before the 1300s. They have some really interesting archaeological sites there. So just because we're finding archaeological sites doesn't mean it's Atlantis, but this isn't it. We have a lot more to showcase here. First of all, I want to thank JVC123 for basically spending his time helping me research some of these sites. And yeah, I just want to give a shout out, say thank you for contributing to Second Earth. Okay, so let me show you an example of why this may not be an ancient structure. I discovered that there was structure that was recently built within the Richat structure. So as we go up here, you see this kind of white square. Well, as I go back in time, you notice that this is actually a recent thing. Now here you kind of have the outline of the square as if somebody was planning to put something there, and then sure enough you have a structure. So I don't know what this is for. It's not a home. It's just a random structure near some kind of road up above. And then when we go over here, you see that the settlement right over here, whether I don't know if there's a settlement or what exactly that is, but I just know it's new. See, it kind of disappears from 2013 to 2014. So it was recently built. So that's what I'm trying to say. This, just because you see something anomalous in Richat structure doesn't mean it's ancient. Having said that, let's go ahead and look at some more interesting sites that could indeed be very ancient. So this next one is actually a lot more interesting. As I go to the outer edges of the Richat structure, what I started noticing is some really rectilinear patterns. And one of them that really caught my attention that I thought might be worth highlighting were these guys right over here. Now, I totally submit to the possibility that this could be completely geological, but it is very interesting how symmetrical it is. And besides these guys, we also have this location, which is not that far away from it. It's also kind of in the outer edges of the ring. And check this out. So we have all these weird linear patterns, right? Kind of crisscrossing the mountains. And once again, admit it could be geological. But as I go over here, I mean, look at that. I don't know. I mean, are these water paths? Because I thought that if this was created by water, it wouldn't create perfect X's. I thought water would be more eroded, you know, kind of like how you see it up here. But these exact fracturings that we see down here, I don't know what that is. I don't know if that's water erosion. So yeah, it's kind of interesting. But if we just shift over just to the left a little bit, I noticed that there was kind of like an interesting, like linear structural patterns that cut across the mountain, right? And I don't think this is water erosion. This just looks true hard cuts, true linear. And as I kind of shifted over and went up here, I noticed that just as this linear pattern ends, we get some other kind of anomalous structures. We get, once again, those little circles and the other linear patterns. Basically other rectilinear patterns over here. You see kind of a very square looking foundation. So I don't think this is like anything modern. I think it could be from the 1300s. It could be from much older. Definitely does look like there's something very interesting. See, look how perfect that circle is from far away. And it ends right at exactly where that structure ends. So I can't say for certain what that is. I can only say that it looks kind of strange. The fact that it's positioned next to that X is kind of strange. It doesn't look like this could just be water by itself. So yeah, I thought it was at least worth showcasing to you guys. But what I found more interesting than even these patterns that are outlining the outer structure of the rings, it's kind of what I found a little bit south of the rings. Now, if we were to assume that this whole area was underwater at one point, perhaps right before the ocean, there was some kind of like fortification. Now, this is just a guess. Now, I know this is a lot of conjecture, but I'm just saying if there was to be some kind of fortification right at the edge of where the ocean, or if this is the first entrance of the island, so to speak. Let me show you what we found here that I thought it's kind of interesting, to say the least. Okay, so first I want to show you these rock patterns. Now, once again, I have to admit that I'm not an expert, so I can't 100% tell if this is just 100% geological process. But if it is, I have to say it's probably some of the most rectilinear geological things that I've ever seen on Google Earth. Because let me show you what I mean. I'm just gonna start scanning and just take a look at these huge megalithic looking rocks that are scattered all over this region. And as I back up, look how rectilinear the pattern is. I mean, just look at that. And I you know, I have the link. Now I have the link in the bottom, so definitely take a look. Look at the area yourself, and if you notice anything, just, you know, give us a comment. Let us know what's going on. So just from looking from afar, it looks just very, very rectilinear. It's just a geological process that I'm not used to seeing, so I'm not really sure exactly how this is formed. But as I zoom out and I go over here, what I started noticing around this area is not that we just have these very square looking rocks, but we also have very circular looking rocks. For example, you see almost like a circle within a circle over here. We get another circular rock over here. So yeah, you know, and we go over here, we kind of see these very triangular patterns. We got another circular type pattern, very square looking pattern. You know, I'm just not used to seeing that many squares, that many circles and triangles all in the same location, and I'm just struggling to understand how geologically all of this is formed. Now, if we go just north a little bit, take a look at these big ass rocks. Look at this. I mean, this literally looks like one of those huge megalithic foundations that you see like in the Incan, like those Incan walls, you know? And yeah, I'm just gonna kind of slowly coast around the area so you guys get a sense of what these features are showcasing. Look at this. It just looks so strange to me. And look at these rocks right over here. I mean, these looks like giant slabs that are just almost cut out. I mean, can water do all of that? Maybe. I don't know. So yeah, there's one other site I want to show you that just from afar looks absolutely breathtaking. I called it the Oasis of Atlantis, but let's take a look. Now, if I could ever get to Mauritania, I swear to God, I'm gonna grab my drone, if they allow drones there, and I'm gonna fly it over this area, because this to me looks absolutely breathtaking, even if only geological. To have this little island of just giant fracturings of boulders, I don't know what this is. It just looks very unique to me. I've never seen anything like this. And the fact that this all lies just south, just at the edge of where the water would break near Atlantis, is giving me questions. Is this geological? Could that little oasis, that little island of rocks, be something more than just geology? And okay, so if that wasn't convincing, if these other, you know, rectilinear, square-looking rocks aren't convincing to you, I want to show you one little site that I saw, and this actually blew my mind a little bit, because I actually thought that this could indeed be artificial. So if we go over here, and it's not that far from the area, it's just kind of like the very, very, very edge of where the ocean would meet kind of a landmass right next to Atlantis, and at the very, very, very edge, there looks to be these strange rectilinear patterns, right? And look at this. Look how straight these rock patterns are. And so yeah, so let's draw a line to see how big this is. And if I just back it up for a second, you can kind of get a more general sense of how big this can be. And just quickly taking a ruler, going from one end to another, you see that this is at least 2 miles long. And what kind of caught my interest over here was two things. One, when you back up over here and you look at the outer edges of these mountains, right? This pattern of rocks right over here just looked way too neat for me. I couldn't quite understand why geologically these fissured rocks would create such a perfectly circular curvature around it. And that's what first caught my attention, and then that's when I noticed these little ports over here. And what really caught my attention is not just that you have this rock that's essentially elevating and creating almost like a wall-like structure, and here you have it like you have the wall like double-sided, but it's the fact that right at the center it opens up just like you see in ports. And what is this little circle right in the middle? Is this some kind of apparatus that would have allowed this to open? I mean, I don't know. It just seems very strange that you'd see that, all of that together. And here, you know, if you transpose this with the pictures of regular ports, I'm telling you, it looks very, very similar. Look. So not that we just have this perfectly circular area right over here, not that we have these standing rocks that seem to open up in what could be like a water channel for boats to leave a certain port area. But what amazed me is that when you turn around, just go a little bit this way, take a look at this. Look at that. I mean, we got this perfectly linear pattern that cuts right across. And if I take a ruler and we do a quick measurement, look at this. We're talking about almost a perfectly linear wall that spans 3.3 miles. And as you see me placing this ruler, look how this structure, how closely it follows the perfectly linear ruler. Now, you're telling me that I'm supposed to stand back and believe that this 3-mile long line, that this other port-looking wall that is at one point obviously double-sided, and that right next to it you have this perfectly circular area, all protecting what is to be the very end or the beginning of the landmass that reaches Atlantis, and this is what, all geological? I don't know, man. That looks pretty strange to me. So yeah, so maybe these huge rocks, maybe the Atlantis, that oasis of Atlantis might be geological. I don't know, but I'm telling you, those ports, I'm having a lot of skepticism whether that can just be a geological feature, especially when you consider all the coincidence that it's at the very edge of where the water line would be, essentially. So yeah, so I left all the links for you guys to go ahead and do your own search. If anybody discovers anything else that you'd like to share on this channel, you can contact me at eafiles.contact@gmail.com. And just before I finish off this episode, I wanted to leave you guys off with an image that I created by essentially going to a flood map. If you go online, there's all kinds of websites that allows you to essentially survey certain areas in the world and what it would be like if the elevations of sea was a little bit higher. So when I elevated the sea 400 feet, this is what the area looked like. Take a look. There it is. We are going to be having a lot more episodes on this topic. There's so much more to talk about. There are more sites to show. There is the people of Atlantis. Who were they? What did they look like? This is going to be something that I will hopefully be able to touch on the next topics. Whoo-wee! Whoo! That looks like a lot of craziness for one little area. I'm telling you, I'm not saying that all those sites, those things that might look like geological, are all artificial, and I'm not an expert, and especially in a desert region where they do have fracture-like patterns. I don't know. What do you guys think? Now, for those who have not caught my previous episode, you may not realize that this Richat structure, outside of all the other aforementioned coincidences that we have already discussed, it happens to lie in a very unique geographic location. So if you haven't seen this, let me roll the tape real quick to show what I'm talking about. If you haven't guessed, yes, the actual Richat structure is positioned on the exact line that runs from Easter Island through the Nazca lines, past the Richat structure, then to the Egyptian pyramids, then to Mohenjo-Daro, then to Persepolis, Iran, to Angkor Wat. You know, I mean, this line basically wraps around the entire world. And if you didn't know, it doesn't just wrap around the world, it does so in a very interesting pattern. For example, I can literally just take a line from Mohenjo-Daro, and if I wrap it all the way across using Google Earth, it's not going to let me go any further than halfway across the world. But it so happens that halfway across the world is exactly where to Easter Island. And if I were to go to Nazca lines and take that line that doesn't allow me to go anywhere past halfway across the world, well, you can see that it starts wrapping around Angkor Wat. So we have these sites not just lined up in a single line, but they are literally exact opposite sides of the world. And if you look at my other episode, now I'm not going to go over all the details, but some of these sites also line up in a golden ratio pattern. So I'm going to leave a link for the episode if you guys have not seen that. So that is the episode for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I think it's a topic that's really important towards understanding human history and basically where we come from. Now, if you haven't checked out, I do have a brand new website, and I also have a brand new merchandise store. Now, we're not loaded with merchandise, but we're gonna have some very, very cool, very interesting merchandise. So if you guys are looking to upgrade your mug or get a cool new shirt, definitely check out the site. This is Felipe Osario, signing out.